Lovely.
Okay.
Hey Shane, how are you?
Pretty good. Weather's a little bit of sunshine for now until it decides to rain again in about 15 minutes, no doubt. And been just I've been taking some time out from Napalm the past few months just to get my I guess I had a bit of a strange occurrence in February, and uh, I don't know, trying to spend some more time with the family and things like that. And recently became like type 2 diabetic, which is a bit annoying in some respects, but getting my head around that, which is good. And yeah, I'm all right generally, feeling fitter, losing a bit of weight, which is always a good thing. And just getting ready to come back into the fold with Napalm for the Australian tour, which is good. So
Yeah, no, it's super exciting. I last had a chat with yourself and Barney about 6 years ago before you come out with Napalm, Brujeria, and Lockup, which was a hell of a tour. That was a great tour.
yeah, that's a triple whammy for me. Which I wonder sometimes if I could still do that. And I probably could. But yeah, those are fun things to do. When they kind of they don't always work out. So to speak. But it just seemed that made sense. And for Lockup, which really doesn't get to do too many shows anyway, it was a great opportunity to come down and play some songs. And Brujeria is always fun. I like it because it's three different things. So it's kind of like sort of keeps you on your toes, and you're playing with different drummers, and it's yeah, I find it good. I don't know, good homework for sort of whatever that means. I
Yeah,
guess.
no, it's true, man. Like they're way different bands, so 100%. And I was quite curious, like how many times I tried to work it out, but I couldn't work it out. How many times do you think you've been to Oz? Because I know you're the first time you come out, it was like 95 for Diatribes.
96, I think it was
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then we didn't come down for a long time.
Yeah, there was a gap. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. We didn't come down. We started working with Brad and Dicey, and I think that might have been. God, I'm trying to remember. Because um, I know we came down with Carcass,
Yep.
but I think we came down once or twice before then. And I don't know. It was like early 2000s. I'm trying to think. It was definitely a good. I would like to say even. What are we looking at? Good 10-year gap at least before we came down. I think probably.
Yeah, I think it was. I think you've probably come down like five or maybe six times. I know. I've seen you probably at least five times myself, but yeah, I think it's about yeah maybe five times.
Yeah, it's about that, and it was weird because of the Lockup and Brewery tour, and I was remembering when we came before that with Carcass, and of
Yeah,
course
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
kind of I was trying to get mixed up a little bit because I remember we played down in New Zealand, and we all tagged it off up to the old Weather workshop to look at some Lord of the Rings things because we were into that kind of shit.
Oh,
And
of course, yeah,
but for some reason,
guaranteed.
yeah, so that was fun, and but then, of course, it was definitely at least two times before that. So I reckon altogether, definitely five, possibly
Yeah,
six.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think so. So, yeah, I'm definitely keen to talk about some of your projects and also a bit of the creative process and also about your book as well. Definitely going to chat about that. But um, what I was going to say is, how do you manage all these? You've got some amazing bands and projects from, Brujeria, Lockup, Venomous Concept, which I do want to chat about that last album as well. And, even the second Blood from the Soul, Tronos, Meathook Seed, and also Dark Sky Burial. How do you manage all that? Because obviously, in between since the last time we spoke, you're being a dad as well.
Well, I guess primarily my wife's supportive, although she gives me a bollocking mostly. For like at some points.
Yeah,
Um, and of course, she understands what I do, and it's become more and more evident to me and people around me and close friends that the past 10, 15 years, especially, it's an itch. I like to make music, and I get, I love discovering new bands, and a few of my old friends turn me onto stuff and I get excited about it. And you know, the beauty and the gift in some ways of being able to do what I do is you meet people around the world, people you used to tape trade with or right back in the day, or you just meet really interesting people, and you can't help, if you're kind of like minded, you spark off on that kind of on that enthusiasm. And you know, with like Blood from the Soul, Dirk Boyden, who you know, plays with Megadeth now. At the time, he didn't. When he always used to say, "Let's do another album," and he kind of, things happened, and I'm always chipping away in the background, you know, and making sort of music for various things, and you kind of log it. I mean, I've got so many ideas for the next Napalm album that I'm very keen to. That's my thing, being creative, really. I mean, touring's great, but the past couple of years, I've been really trying to focus on my family as well, because you go away for long periods of time, you come back and you feel a bit distant, you know. So it's trying to balance that, but you try and find the time is all I can say, you know. And it's what I do. I mean, I'm lucky. I mean, God knows what kind of job I'd be able to hold down at this point in my life. But you know, I mean, you know, I'm not like, we're not millionaires, but we managed to make a living. It was never that intention at the beginning, but of course, all of a sudden you cross the line where you have to, well, you know, you realize, well, this is what I do. But I still like to. I don't know. I like to think that I try to be in touch with what's happening, but you know, I still have that kind of little childlike urge in me. I mean, my Dark Sky Burial is, you know, that's got. I'm actually making a record at the moment, and I just, I think, I know I put the record up, and people they give me feedback, and you know, and I see the little squares of albums I'm doing. I get a bit of a kick out of it. I'm like, look at these albums I've done. You know, it's not for everybody, but you know, I still get excited about that stuff. You know.
Oh, yeah, I definitely want to go deep on the Dark Sky Burial. I love that. You know, 7 albums deep. I think it's really amazing. But sort of backtracking on what you just said, I think the collaborations that you work with, you seem to obviously really enjoy, and you hit on exactly what I was going to ask about, the like-minded artists. You got many friends over the years from touring. You've just got, you know, kind of endless collaborations with really good people.
And then these things, you know, they tend to. I mean, I become, I guess, in a way, sometimes, well, quite obsessive in some ways. It's always, you know, you're navigating your family, but the back of my head, I'm like, oh, all right, okay. Dirk's maybe going to send some drum tracks over for me for the third Blood from the Soul album. So that's kind of niggling away in some corner of my mind. And then, but I mean, that came about the second album because I remember we did some shows with the Converge back in 2002 in Japan with Lockup. And, you know, I remember me and Thomas Lindbergh, we just, you know, there was the Jane Doe album that came out, and fuck me, it's like Converge were totally on fire, you know. And me and Thomas were like, there's just no way we're going to be able to follow them, you know. And but we became really good friends. And I remember Jacob just asking about the Blood from the Soul album, just flippantly. For some reason, that record seemed to, you know, it didn't sell loads or anything like that, but it had a cult following. And so when Dirk was kind of like tickling at me, going, let's do something, I was like, well, this could be interesting, because Lou from Sick of It All was kind of always busy.
True.
For whatever reasons. And then it just kind of, and I said, oh, well, Jake's into it, you know, and Jake really took it and did his whole concept, which was really good, because sometimes when you do projects in the past, you know, as a musician or whatever you want to call yourself, you like to go, okay, right, I'm going to do something separate. But then sometimes you realize that collaboration is the complete key to making something interesting. You know, you have to sometimes have someone say, well, that's not maybe the best idea. Let's try that way, for those elements to rub together to kind of create something interesting. I mean, with Napalm, me and Barney are kind of like chalk and cheese, I always like to say, but it works, you know, together. So those are important things you really have to come to realize after a while, you know.
So I mean, really, I mean, you've kind of touched on it. Definitely making music is a creative part of you. Like, you know, you seems to be that chipping away and those ideas in your kind of head. They seem to. I probably have two questions about, you know, it's obviously a critical part of your being, but it's also how how do the ideas come to you? I mean, obviously, you've got a lot of different bands, but is there any kind of routine or ritual, or how do these things come to you?
Well, it would depend, I suppose. I mean, with the Tronos, we've because of course when if you go through the traditional album process of through record labels and stuff, there's always such a period of like 3 months promotion or whatever the fuck they do, you know. So prior to that, you kind of like I'm sort of like floating around. I mean that album, the Tronos record with Rush's. We have like a second album we've been working on for probably like 3 years. We've got like, I don't know, over an hour's worth of material. And we just haven't had time to kind of like finish it. The first album took forever. So that's interesting for me because we'll just sit there, I can sit the guitar and I'll put a click track on and I'll just see what the hell comes up. And I go, that's an interesting riff. Where the hell can we go from here? And because we like such a vast array of music, over the years, I mean, like when I joined Napalm, I actually started as a drummer, but when I joined Napalm, I didn't venture very much past the second string on a bass guitar. That was the.
Yeah.
But over the years, you hope, well, you somehow managed to. I call myself a jack of all trades, master of none. Is an old saying we have over here. And it's just sort of like I play a bit of guitar, a bit of drums, I do a bit of singing, but I've always loved different styles. So you somehow draw it into your being, if that's a word to draw from. And over the years, I've slowly kind of managed to integrate that old school kind of grind. To me, it seems natural to play like I don't know, a real punk discharge riff and then go straight into something that would resemble something like Killing Joke, or then break it down to some dark ambient thing. And to me, it's all purposeful and meaning, and sometimes it just comes to you. It's like sometimes if you sit there, nothing's happening. And then I think last week the boys came down to the house, and within 10 minutes I had my little iPhone out and a couple of riffs. I was going, that's good. And I store these riffs away, and I have like tons of them. And I go back to it, and then I start to like assemble it a little bit. Usually I have a B, and I stop, and then it kind of like then it writes itself for me. Really, sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say, how does that, how does it stand out? Like a good riff is a good riff, but when you suddenly go, fuck, that's a really good song or whatever. And I mean, you've got so many projects, so you can kind of separate it. But I suppose, yeah, the key element or something that stands out for you, because you've got so many projects.
Yeah, I think sometimes you can. I think with Napalm, for example, the real slow tracks that we've done, some of those were on like a 4-track recording for years, and they were for something else in some ways. But then it seemed that they fitted with Napalm, and then Barney was, I guess, well, I don't want to say ready or whatever, but at that point in his life, he did vocals on it, which completely, shaped the track into the vision that I was imagining. So I thought, oh, that's brilliant, that worked. So we can now do more of them, and so that's kind of that happens sometimes. And then sometimes you'll write some riffs. I write some riffs and I put it on my iPhone, and then I forget about it, and I write something similar currently. And okay, well, we're using that, and then I'll go back and find what would be the prototype.
Excellent.
Prototype of that riff, and I'll go, well, that's still got a riff. Fuck it, I'm using that too. So it's like it's a little, I don't know what you would call it. Not Pandora's box, but it's a little kind of weird way of how I put things together, and over time you go back and go, oh, there's quite a lot of ideas here, which is a good thing because it's better to have a lot than none.
100%. And I was going to say, so also that I think you joined Napalm in like 87 or so. So do you think that you've kind of, the reason that you kind of still around and still, because you pushed the boundaries? I mean, because I'm a huge fan myself. One of the two first CDs I ever bought were like Napalm Scum and also Doom, Total Doom, and maybe Godflesh. But I think the last couple of albums really pushed those boundaries.
Well, The Napalm history, I suppose, is especially in the early years, is quite not confusing, but there was the fact that when Scum actually came out, there was not an original member at that point.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bizarre. And I was lucky enough to meet and become really good friends with the guys on the A side. I did get asked to join Napalm between the A side and B side, because Justin left to play drums for the band called Head of David.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was that, and then I was like, "Yeah, I'm into it." I remember coming back on the bus from Coventry. I'm not sure what gig we were at, but it really was. I remember Nick Bullen asking me, and that was on guitar. And we came back, and I went back to Jimmy, who played bass on the album, and he was all kind of excited about it. I showed him, I think, the song "Practice What You Preach" and maybe some other one. But I was really nervous, and still at that point, being a village boy, I'd really never been anywhere. Birmingham was probably the furthest, and London a couple of times. I remember getting fired from my job for going to see Celtic Frost. But and so I kind of chickened out a little bit, and but eventually joined in '80 before the second album.
Yeah.
But I think really, for me, you go through, you're young, you get older, but I always look back at the past in some ways, and when I'm moving forwards as well, it's just not always. They always say it's not. You shouldn't really do that, I guess, but to me, there's elements of what Napalm did, and also what some of the members, especially Mickey, wanted to do. I mean, Mickey left Napalm. He was very frustrated. He wanted to do this and this and this, and I was like, well, yeah, that's cool, but you can't just keep chop and change every 5 minutes. There's got to be, in my mind, not a progression, but a natural, or not a natural flow to like developing new ideas. And I think I'm really good friends with Mickey, to this day, and I see him, and he's still an eccentric character. I think he likes what we especially done on the last record, what we've done. I think it's more akin to what he would have wanted to do, but of course he's very impatient,
Yeah.
And I'm kind of rambling a little bit here, but it's just like, for me, especially with his last record, because Mitch wasn't really in Napalm at that point. He'd left to Vegas to move back to see to be with his family. He was in and not in. All of a sudden, it became my responsibility to write everything, which I didn't even think about at the time. I just kind of did it. But I'm like, okay, well, then I said, I really want to start doing things like this. And you learn the techniques of how we are in the studio. And Danny gets very nervous. So I was like, well, you know what, Danny, we could fucking rehearse for 3 or 4 months here, and then we press record, and you might forget the parts that you really liked. So why don't we just have a rough guide here, and then just, we know what we want to do. This track's probably going to go in this direction. Let's work on sections. And you say, well, what do I want? What drum rolls? I'm like, we'll do whatever the fuck you want.
Exactly.
And he goes, well, what if it's out of time? He says, well, it won't be out of time, but if it is, maybe I'll change the riff to that out of timing, and then that'll become something interesting. And these things, when you're a bit younger, you're very rigid. You're like, oh no, it's got to be that roll. It's got to be fucking bollocks, really, because you end up wasting time trying to be perfect, which is impossible anyway. And
exactly, yeah.
So it's more. I've always liked the experimental edge from various styles of music, but I'm really trying to push it into Napalm in a way of like, recording should be fun. I mean, for me, it's the best part of doing it, is creating. And you don't want to be sitting there like it's a fucking job. Fuck that. So I'm not interested in that. So it's like, I want to sit there going, this is interesting. Look what's happened. That note shouldn't really work with that note, but it fucking does. And that's brilliant. Sorry if I'm swearing a bit, but there you go.
No, that's good, man. Like I agree. It should, it's got to spark that in you. Otherwise, it's fucking boring as fuck. Whether it's a crust punk or deep punk, a death metal band, you don't want it to be boring. It's a surprise every album, which I love.
And I think over the years, past few years especially, I'm really, I wouldn't say inching forward in that. I'm sort of striding forward towards a kind of free and more experiment. I mean, of course, I love all my death metal and my grind. I mean, that's inherent. I mean, when we were doing the Throws album, we recorded the music in two sessions rather, and so we had a series of about 7 songs, which were kind of roughly worked out. But then the rest really happened in the studio. There was stuff like Belly Full of Salt, where I just wanted to, which is not a new idea. I wanted to get a bunch of oil cans and metal and bash the fuck out of it, and then Russ would then arrange some of that with me to get rhythms, and then you start to see this thing growing, and I always that's some of my favorite stuff, because you go, these bitch, how the hell are they going to work together? But they kind of start to work. And then Barney comes in, and it was like, wow, this came from just a lot of eclectic percussion, and so that was a good element to put into the band. And then of course, when you've done so many albums, you go, well, you know what, we haven't done a song like that for a while. How can I reinvent that track in a way that will hopefully be something new, So
yeah, no, it's always surprising. I wanted to briefly touch on the book. I'm very excited about it. I've ordered it myself. What gems is the book going to reveal without any spoilers? Because I'm super excited about it, and also about how the response has been.
I think the general response has been good. When I got asked if would I be into a book, I said, well, yeah, fuck it, why not? I mean, it's kind of not. I find it bizarre, but also I used to joke over the years about it. Oh yeah, I'll be in the book, just whatever, laughing. But I think coming where I came from to where I'm lucky enough to be now, it's quite a journey. And there's there are sections where it sort of details to some degree the recording of each Napalm album, as I remember it, of course, which is not always maybe correct, but as best I can. It presents different sides to me, and so if people are interested, they'll hopefully find out some stuff about me they don't know, and also around Napalm Death itself. It's not just Cellion. Napalm is a big part of it, of course. And also where I was born, in a really tiny village about an hour from Birmingham, and the journey of discovering music, really, and the influence I guess my family had on, whether they realised it or not, pushing me forwards. They were always quite encouraging. So to be here, I thought I'm quite lucky to be here, but it couldn't have been any other way in some ways, really.
I was going to say, Shane, do you sometimes pinch yourself and just go, what the fuck? Like, this is, bizarre. Because I think you've, it's a career of, 35, nearly 40 years. It's pretty amazing, isn't it, really?
I do pinch myself, and you have to. I think I read an interview with Michael from Opeth, or one of the guys from Opeth, and they said the same thing. They're like, sometimes, like, because life kicks us all in the balls,
Yeah.
But then you sometimes you go, hold on a fucking minute, not just the musical achievements, but I met my wife in 2004 in Japan. We played with Nazem, and I was fucking, and then lo and behold, I have 2 children. So in some ways, the band, or my, I don't know, career, whatever you want to call it, has given me the greatest gifts, really, And so, yeah, you have to really pinch yourself and go, come on, man. It ain't that fucking bad.
Yeah, it's amazing. I also, 100%. And I wondered, have you heard the podcast on Spotify about the mermaid? Like, it's pretty amazing. I love the history.
I haven't checked that out. I have to. Yeah, a couple of things came up about it last week, and there was a feature the week before in the newspaper called The Guardian we have over here.
Yeah.
And that's just up the road from where I am. It's about a 10-minute walk. It's not called the Mermaid anymore. Fortunately, funny enough, I was wondering, where the fuck is that mermaid sign? I wonder if it's in some parking lot somewhere. I need to get it and put it in my fucking back garden. But yeah, it's now it's like I guess like a kind of Portuguese steak restaurant. Unfortunately, it's literally it ceased being the Mermaid a long time ago, but essentially looks the same. And I keep on wanting to go down there with the rest of the Napalm guys and do like a little video of our own, just going, well, this actually, because the doors, for some reason, they've just repainted the door, and the entrance is almost the same, strangely enough. But obviously inside has been remodified because there was a fire there, I think, back in '86. So a show I didn't go to. I think Heresy, Concrete Socks played. And it was like
Wow.
not a massive fire. One of my friends, it was because upstairs it was like an Irish pub, So downstairs, all these Irish guys getting leathered, and we would go upstairs, and you'd walk in, and there'd be a bunch of punks on the floor. And I remember the first time I walked in, and it talks about that in the book, but I was like, just as me and my friend Mitch Dickinson were just like metalheads, tape traders, cut off denim on leather, and then Mickey Harris just jumped over out of the blue because he's eccentric, because I had "Thrashed till the Death" written in marker pen on my jacket,
Excellent.
and he loved that. That was it, and we were friends, and so yeah, it was just £1.50 for 7 bands, total bargain, really.
It's definitely as a huge fan of all those bands, you should definitely, I think it's about 4 parts, but it's like amazing. Yeah, it's just how it started and all the bands and the politics and everything. I think probably Nick's on it and a few other people from all, quite a few bands, but it's a good listen, man. It's really good.
Yeah, I missed out on that one. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I don't know because you get asked to do things and the dreaded junk folder,
Yeah. I think you would have been a good one for it.
But there you go. I discussed talk about the Mermaid. I was hanging out with Nick a few weeks ago. Me and him went to see Melvin's, which is a brilliant show. And I love hanging out with Nick because he's kind of being the him and Ratwood, obviously they created the Napalm Death, but Nick kind of silently watches us from a distance, and we always have our discussions. And it's always key to me, still after so many years, what he thinks, and he's always got positive words to say, which I admire. Someone who kind of went on to do what he wanted to do, and has become as an experimental artist. He's amazing too, and it's just nice to have like some encouragement, a little bit of a pat on the back that I'm doing okay.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's that's like super positive. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm super keen to catch you in September, and hopefully we'll have a chat face to face as well. Thank you very much for your entire works from Napalm, and your commitment to the craft. It's really good, man. It's super encouraging.
Cool, man. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thanks for the interview. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
I appreciate it, and cheers.
No problem. No problem, mate. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.
All right. See you soon. See you, buddy.
Bye-bye. Yeah, see you soon. September. Bye.
Cheers.